Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to take a closer look at Bitcoin and I'd like to answer a crucial question with you. When could we potentially see a bottom in Bitcoin's current bear market? When might that happen? Could it be as early as 2026 or perhaps not until next year? We're going to be taking a look at that. I'll also be giving my personal assessment of just how much further Bitcoin could potentially fall and how far it might then continue to progress over the next few months. So, before we begin, naturally, a quick risk disclaimer. Everything I state here does not represent a buy or sell recommendation, nor is it financial advice, but solely my personal opinion. So let's now take a look at the Bitcoin chart. And what exactly do we have in front of us here? Bitcoin has been in a bear market for quite some time, long before the attack on Iran. That means Bitcoin here kind of crashed ahead of time compared to the overall market. It was always said, okay, Bitcoin correlates very strongly with the Nasdaq, and that's quite true. We have also now, in the course of the Iran war, naturally seen the weakness that Bitcoin is sold off when the stock market generally falls. And this is precisely the environment we are currently in, this risk-off environment, because currently a lot of concerns prevail in the market, whether the crisis might drag on longer and have more severe global impacts. All these are factors that naturally now reinforce the trend Bitcoin already had. We see the downtrend began in October 2025, and I had already started selling then because I had simply seen this bearish divergence. Yes, here in the RSI we had falling highs and at the same time rising highs in the price. That's called bearish divergence. Then I realized, okay, these are signs of weakness, I'd better get out. Primarily because this has also very, very closely aligned with the cycles that we've observed over the past several years. And we'll be looking at that again shortly to help us define, okay, where exactly or when precisely could a bottom for Bitcoin potentially be reached if Bitcoin here behaves analogously to its previous cycles. Purely from a chart technical standpoint, we are now in a consolidation pattern. We are relatively far or a bit from the moving averages. This means typically Bitcoin often tests the 20-week moving average and quite possibly even the 50-day. That would actually be a more bullish sign if we saw an upward test already in this early phase, but we must not forget we are in a downtrend, and that will only reverse when we are back above the 50-week moving average. Currently, Argentina says that you don't really see the trends. As in pause on the daily chart, it looks exactly the same. The weakness, we are below the moving averages. Mandarin pause, and here directionally, if I had to commit to which way it's more likely to go, I would rather say it's more likely to go towards $60,000 again. That means we'll retest the lows here. In the RSI, we've also somewhat reduced this oversold area that we previously had here. This also proceeds here in phases consistently downwards, a sell-off, then a period of consolidation, and then the next sell-off. And we'll have to see to what extent we'll see that shortly if we make new lows here below 60,000. I wouldn't want to completely rule that out because here, looking at the RSI, if we zoom out a little bit further, a bit wider, we certainly haven't yet reached that oversold level, which Bitcoin, however, also hadn't reached in its previous bear markets. This means it's quite possible that we might have found a bottom right here in this price range around $60,000. At least for now, we've found a bottom. This doesn't mean that Bitcoin will immediately start a new upward trend within the next few weeks, but we should definitely keep our eyes open that we might be looking at a longer consolidation phase here. This is something that I actually sometimes anticipate in a bullish scenario, that we initially have a larger range between $60,000 and $75,000, where Bitcoin first moves sideways. And then we have to see in which direction it breaks out. And that cannot be predicted at this point yet. What we can say, though, is that we are in an intact downtrend, and you shouldn't go against the trend because it usually continues until it shows signs of a trend reversal. And we don't see that at the moment. And with the, bearish environment that we currently have in the overall market, with the ongoing conflict in Iran, if that were to escalate further, I also believe that Bitcoin could potentially experience another significant sell-off here, because it is inherently a risk-on asset, and consequently it could once again come under considerable pressure. This means that $50,000 is certainly not an unrealistic target. And then, yes, the question naturally arises, when could we at long last have finally reached a definitive bottom? And so let's take a closer look at the cycles now. And I have here vertically plotted the halvings, showing precisely when they took place and when we anticipate the next halving, which will be the 5th one, approximately in March of 2028. Let's keep our fingers crossed on this one. It's not an exact figure, but you can roughly estimate it. Yes, so approximately in March of 2028. And if we take a look at the last few cycles, then from its low point, a bull market has always lasted around 900 to 1000 days. And that has worked out quite well here now too, yes. We essentially saw the market bottom out here in November, early December of 2022, and then roughly 1000 days later, specifically in September of 2025, we'd see the peak of the bull market, or rather the start of a bear market. And then it's important to just consider, of course, how long has this process always taken up until now? Or how long did a bear market typically last in the previous Bitcoin cycles? And we can see, if we plot this out from the very peak, from the top all the way down to the bottom of the bear market, then that was always roughly around 400 days. At least the last two halving cycles can be taken as a good reference. And if we assume that, or rather speculate that it could be the same again this time, then we could expect a Bitcoin bottom sometime in autumn around 2026. I can also mark that here. Well, that's what I would expect then, or rather where you then go a step further. Yes, we can pay much closer attention to indicators of a potential trend reversal. What that means is, even if Bitcoin here initially just moves sideways, or perhaps is slowly or even slightly sold off further downwards, and continues to be sold off, we should then reevaluate this entire situation accordingly. Or it could then become really quite interesting to see whether we now have a good entry opportunity right here. From that point, I would say, okay, we should still proceed with caution, because we're currently experiencing a very active, a really, really strong downtrend, which has absolutely no signs of a trend reversal at all. This means that quite certainly the scenario of another sell-off is also very much a possibility. Let's take a look now at how deep Bitcoin bear markets have historically been. We've seen losses from the peak of around 70 to 80%, one could say. If you were to plot that roughly onto the peak of the last bull market, that would actually be approximately $30,000 for Bitcoin, which I believe very few people can imagine seeing again here in Bitcoin. But that would actually, in my opinion, truly be a very, very profound scenario, which I wouldn't necessarily consider to be, entirely realistic. Well, I think we'll definitely see even deeper lows again, but whether we'll reach the $30,000 mark for that to happen, I believe the Iran war would really have to escalate very, very significantly for us to get to that point. But I definitely want to say that the potential for a significant drop is still very much present here, and the time for a market bottom has not yet arrived. And that's why I would say that one should generally be cautious with Bitcoin for the time being. So let's take a look at the monthly chart, because that's always something very, or I personally find it very, very important to assess or to keep a close eye on. And I've already mentioned this before. What bothers me a little bit, yes, or makes me feel somewhat uneasy, is precisely the fact that we didn't experience such a strong bull market here as we did in the last cycles. We can see this already even just by looking at the chart's form. We haven't seen these explosive FOMO hypes that we've experienced during the previous bull markets. This means Bitcoin has already behaved a bit differently, at least in its overall manifestation. In terms of timing, it fit quite well, but the nature of the bull market is quite different now compared to the last few cycles. And now I'm curious to see to what extent we'll then see a similarity in the bear market, or if the bear market also behaves differently than in the last cycles. That's difficult to say. But what we can say is this: from the RSI value, we have now reached a very, very important mark here, or rather we are slowly entering a territory where Bitcoin has also always turned around in the last cycles. Yes, we are now at an RSI value of approximately 50. At around 40 to 50, as it then found its bottom. That means with a sideways consolidation and a moderate sell-off with lower prices, that would actually still fit the overall picture. Should we see a larger sell-off given pause down RC? I mean, so here the support zone in the RSI, and that can certainly be applied here. Pause. Should we see a larger sell-off, then there is indeed the danger that we would get a deeper and longer bear market. I wouldn't completely disregard that, but it's still quite far off in the future to definitively say whether we might see a multi-year bear market for Bitcoin here or not. So I'm excited. I'm definitely getting ready to enter. The entry point hasn't come yet, so I'm still holding back. I'm not invested, but I plan to, when the signs are right, build up a Bitcoin position again. And of course, if you don't want to miss that, please subscribe and give a thumbs up if you liked the video. And then in the next video, or rather with the next major changes or important shifts in Bitcoin's course, I will of course inform you with a new video. Until then, I wish you all the best, much success, and goodbye.